my father was on the cusp of his 50th birthday. He acquired an ominous creature, an African gray parrot, which had always fascinated him. I was pleased for him, considering this a pleasant distraction following his retirement. The creature was given a human name, Kevin, and soon it evolved into something more than just a pet. My father meticulously tutored Kevin, teaching him a strange assortment of words and phrases, even ensuring that the bird grasped their meanings. Fast forward 2 decades, my father, at the age of 70, breathed his last, leaving us in a conundrum of what to do with his sentient feathered companion. My siblings, unable to shoulder the responsibility, and hindered by the disapproval of their respective spouses, hesitated to take Kevin in. However, I found the prospect of sending Kevin away unbearable. The bird represented one of my last links to my father, a living testament of his unique bond with this creature. I made the decision to offer Kevin a home with me. Kevin's new dwelling was in the den of my house, which, lacking a basement, was the deepest, most secluded part of the dwelling. This decision would soon fill my nights with an uncanny dread. Kevin was not a quiet inhabitant. He often filled the house with cacophonous chatter, especially during the early hours. But as dusk fell, he would grow unnervingly silent. Whenever his squawking became unbearable, I would drape a blanket over his cage, a signal for him to cease his noise. Each night, I would sit in the den, the flickering television light my only company, along with the silent shadow of Kevin. Around 10 o'clock, I would retreat to the sanctuary of my room, leaving the bird to its nocturnal solitude, ignorant of the eerie events that would soon transpire. The tale of Kevin spans 2 years under my care, and by this time, I was well versed in his avian idiosyncrasies and peculiar behaviors. However, an event transpired on a bitterly cold December night, one that sent shivers down my spine and marked an undeniable aberration in Kevin's routine. The clock struck 11 p.m. The stillness of the night was punctuated by the eerie sounds of Kevin echoing from the depths of the house, disturbing the hallowed silence. As a solitary dweller, I had always kept my door open, an essential habit to stay alert to any unexpected events in the house. The cacophony that Kevin was creating was far from normal, an uncanny occurrence that was impossible to ignore. It gnawed at my senses, prompting me to investigate the source of this nocturnal discord. Descending into the den, a sense of foreboding washed over me. There was Kevin, wide-eyed and unnervingly alert, perched on the lower stand of his cage. As our eyes met, he broke into a bizarre chant, parroting words like "hello," "what's up," and his own name, all the while engaging in an almost ritualistic dance, bobbing his head and body in an odd rhythm. My attempts to soothe him with food were futile. A futile blanket cover later, I found myself in the kitchen, sighing in exasperation at the relentless noise, the uncanny bird dance, and the looming prospect of a sleepless night before a demanding day at work. Despite the passing years, my understanding of avian behavior remained elementary at best, leaving me unsure about how to calm Kevin's uncharacteristic restlessness. I returned to the den, uncovering the still agitated parrot. His unsettling dance continued, his distressed sounds filling the air with an unnerving symphony of tension. Then, my heart lurched. Amidst Kevin's relentless squawking, I thought I detected a foreign noise, a rustling that seemed to originate from the pantry closet a few feet away from Kevin's cage. Despite the passing years, my understanding of avian behavior remained elementary at best, leaving me unsure about how to calm Kevin's uncharacteristic restlessness. I returned to the den, uncovering the still agitated parrot. His unsettling dance continued, his distressed sounds filling the air with an unnerving symphony of tension. Then, my heart lurched. Amidst Kevin's relentless squawking, I thought I detected a foreign noise, a rustling that seemed to originate from the pantry closet a few feet away from Kevin's cage. With a sense of creeping dread, I approached the closet. I stood poised on the threshold of terror, my hand hovering over the light switch adjacent to the pantry door. Its broad glass panel would become a window to a horrifying revelation. With a flick of the switch, the mundane pantry was bathed in a sinister glow, revealing a dark silhouette etched behind the glass, the form of an unwelcome guest lurking within. A surge of adrenaline coursed through my veins, triggering the primal fight or flight instinct. Courage prevailed over fear, and with a battle cry that shattered the midnight silence, I flung open the door. A scruffy man in his 50s, his appearance weathered by a harsh life on the streets, leered back at me. The stench of despair and homelessness permeated the air. Without a second's hesitation, I lunged, dragging him out of the closet and hurling him to the floor. He fought back with the desperation of a cornered beast, but his weak attempts were futile against my adrenaline-fueled onslaught. As I held him in a chokehold, I shouted my fears in his face. Who was he? Why was he in my house? His clawing hands scrabbled at my face in a vain attempt to free himself, but my fists retaliated with brutal precision. Amid the chaos, the shrill cacophony of Kevin's distress grew increasingly manic, a distressing soundtrack to this macabre dance of survival. When the intruder finally weakened, I seized a moment of respite, sprinting to the nearest phone. I kept my foot firmly on the defeated intruder as I relayed the ordeal to my mother on the line. The man was hauled off to jail, but his identity remained a mystery. Homeless, nameless, possessing nothing but the stench of destitution, he was considered judgment-proof. Even if I were to press charges, there would be nothing to claim. My pantry bore witness to his invasion, drawers of peanut butter, boxes of cookies and crackers, and a motley assortment of canned goods, all plundered. If it hadn't been for my father's parrot, Kevin, I shudder to think of the terror that might have unfolded that night. Gratitude for Kevin floods my heart, a unique sentinel, a piece of my father, continuing to watch over me from within the confines of his cage. In the icy grip of my junior year in high school, I found myself ensnared in the harsh reality of academics and sports. I was a disciplined student, wrestling with complex courses and dueling in several varsity sports. My schedule was an unforgiving monster, rarely relinquishing its hold on me. Yet, I secretly reverenced this perpetual busyness, as it was an antidote to the chilling emptiness that had taken root at home since my parents had split and my elder brother had departed for college. It was just my younger brother and I left, two parallel lines that never intersected. He was a gifted student and a swimmer too, our similarities striking yet seemingly tarnished by the turbulent waters of our family life. We were like two islands in the same sea, sharing the same elements but irrevocably distant. On one particularly gloomy winter day in the Midwest, I returned home from school, shoulders weighed down by the intensity of swim practice and the looming burden of hours' worth of homework. I was tasked with crafting an essay for a class that failed to spark any interest in my tired mind. Dumping my swim bag unceremoniously at the entrance, I scanned our quiet house, its emptiness echoed with a tinge of melancholy. The house was deserted, my father was absent, undoubtedly caught in the vortex of my brother's strenuous swim practice. Cramming a handful of Cheez-Its into my mouth, I descended into the basement, my makeshift office. Our middle-class abode was a two-story structure, with a basement as bare and unfurnished as my current state of mind. The stillness of the house whispered untold tales, adding a layer of disquiet to my already taut nerves. In the hollow depths of our home lay what we had come to call Quinn's office. Once a sanctuary for my father's remote work, it was now solely a refuge for my studies, a solitary island amidst a sea of bare concrete and scattered carpet samples that made up our unadorned basement. Traversing the cold, uneven floor, I arrived at my destination and flipped on the weak, stuttering CFL light, just another quiet night in the aftermath of vigorous practice. Seated before the computer, I was entranced by the steady, hypnotic rhythm of my fingers dancing across the keyboard. Hours bled away, reduced to mere fleeting moments as I wrestled with hedonism and the moral decay evident in the picture of Dorian Gray, attempting to convincingly frame my perceptions. Suddenly, in the depths of the encroaching darkness, my brother's voice sliced through the silence, his familiar call echoing against the stark basement walls. "Quinny, Quinny, come up." Almost instinctively, I retorted, "Reese, I'm working. What do you need?" Our voices, bouncing off the house's walls, painted a picture of typical brotherly banter, yet something was off. He hadn't returned from his swim practice, had he? His voice rang out again, his words laced with an eerie note that echoed disconcertingly across the cold, concrete basement. "Quinny, Quinny, come up." The sound felt intrusive in the stillness, the disturbing realization that Reese was supposed to be at swim practice chilling me. Again, I called out to him, only to be met with a void of silence. Torn between my essay and concern for Reese, I finally decided to investigate. The delicate family dynamics we were navigating left no room for negligence. I catapulted up the basement stairs, a display of energy only a high schooler could muster. "Reese, what's up?" I called out, a note of impatience tinging my voice. "I'm really busy." My search around the main floor, however, only amplified the growing unease. There was no evidence of Reese's return, no discarded shoes, no forgotten backpack. A glance outside confirmed the driveway was devoid of any vehicles, our father presumably away as well. The unsettling silence of the house bore into me, the realization that I was alone setting a sinister stage for the night to come. As I turned to retreat into the safety of my office, Reese's voice echoed again, "Quinny, Quinny, come up." The words, now saturated in an inexplicable dread, sent shivers down my spine, causing every hair on my body to stand at attention. The reality was stark. Reese was supposed to be at practice, and if he needed me, he would have come down to find me. With my heart pounding in my chest, I ventured towards the base of the second floor stairs, my voice wavering as I called out to him, "Reese, what's going on? Are you okay?" For a terrifying moment, there was no reply. The silence felt like a malevolent entity, its weight unbearable. "Reese," I pleaded, my tone desperate, "I'm really busy. Can you tell me what's up?" As I stared into the inky darkness engulfing the staircase, the silence stretched out, every passing second amplifying the palpable sense of unease. I should have been alone. But then, Reese's voice cut through the oppressive quiet again, this time devoid of any playful inflection, those same haunting words, "Quinny, Quinny, come up." Bewildered and unnerved, I muttered a quiet, "What?" The surreal situation left me grasping at straws. Could this be a break-in? A prank? A voice echoing in the wrong place? But I had seen nothing to support these theories. Maybe it was Reese, and maybe helping him would make me a good brother. With that thought in mind, I began the dreadful ascent, each step echoing in my ears like a drum heralding doom. Just as I was about to reach the lightless landing of the second floor, the harsh buzzing of the garage door motor split the silence. Abandoning my ascent, I sprinted back down the stairs and peered out the window just in time to witness my father's sedan pulling into the driveway. My heart froze as I watched my father and Reese emerge from the car. Staggering back from the window, I collapsed to the floor, a cry of disbelief escaping my lips as I succumbed to uncontrollable sobs. The stark reality of the situation was undeniable. I had been alone in the house the entire time. The voice, Reese's voice, it shouldn't have been there. The realization was a cruel blow, and the comfort of my own home was now stained with an insidious terror that would not fade. Approximately 15 years ago, I was but a child in the company of my best friend, Jackson. We found ourselves venturing into a desolate resort, an abandoned bungalow colony nestled deep within the secluded wilderness of New York. It sat hidden from prying eyes, down an untrodden private dirt path that led away from the main road. The sprawling property was dotted with a collection of forsaken buildings, 10 forlorn bungalows, a grand main hall, several disused bathroom stations, and an eerie, decrepit indoor pool house. An outdoor pool, a deserted shuffleboarding area, and an abandoned children's playground were rapidly succumbing to the invasion of the relentless nature, with the property being choked by tall overgrown grass. We had chanced upon this place during a meandering walk along Route 209, though we didn't have the time to explore it that day. Instead, we planned a nocturnal visit, hoping to avoid the risk of being caught and charged with trespassing. Equipped with our trusty flashlights and walkie-talkies for communication, we waited for the sunset to color the sky with farewell kisses and the darkness to cloak our forbidden escapade. As the menacing night drew its shroud over the land, we found ourselves wandering around the bungalows. Their interiors were eerily similar and disconcertingly small, each housing one or two abandoned beds, a small forlorn kitchen, and a derelict bathroom. Some even had quaint little living rooms, hinting at a past life filled with laughter and cheer, now reduced to ghostly echoes. Tiring of Jackson's slower pace, I decided to venture alone. The large building that presumably served as the main hall or office beckoned me, but to my disappointment, all its entrances were securely locked. I grabbed my walkie-talkie, calling out to Jackson, only to be met with an unsettling silence. Puzzled, I questioned if I had strayed too far and was out of range. Just then, the cold grip of dread began to tighten around my heart. As the silent minutes ticked by, I found myself standing alone at the doorstep of I found myself standing before one of the two dilapidated bathroom buildings, a meager 400-square-foot structure eerily void of any doors. In their place were two gaping entrances, one marked for the men's room and the other for the women's room, their signage faded with the cruel passage of time. A disconcerting detail struck me then: the grimy, ancient concrete bathroom floor bore unsettling red streaks, an ominous blemish against the graying concrete. I won't claim that they appeared as blood-soaked footprints, but the crimson stains were unexplainable and disturbing. They etched an unnerving mystery that haunts me to this day. Despite the mounting trepidation, the absolute darkness lurking within the bathroom beckoned me with its chilling allure. It was the first structure that truly frightened me, yet I couldn't resist its call. I tried reaching out to Jackson again, pressing the button on the walkie-talkie, a lifeline against the growing unease. "Yo, where are you?" I asked into the static-laden silence. The sudden beep from the receiving walkie within the creepy bathroom jolted me, a heartbeat away from a full-blown panic. In my fear-addled mind, I concluded that Jackson must already be inside, possibly the author of those disturbing red tracks echoing his name into the sinister darkness. I steeled myself to step into the black abyss, half expecting Jackson to be hiding, orchestrating a ghastly prank. Suddenly, a distant voice cut through the oppressive silence of the night. It was Jackson, his voice growing louder as he approached. In the inky blackness, I couldn't see him, but my flashlight had caught his attention. His urgent words stopped me in my tracks. "I found your walkie-talkie. Don't go in there." I felt the blood freeze in my veins, my foot hovering over the threshold. What did he mean? He had never been in there. He wasn't the source of those haunting red trails. Adrenaline kicked in and I spun around, fleeing from the bathroom's dark maw. The horrifying possibility of what could lurk within its shadowed recesses was a nightmare I wasn't brave enough to confront. My trembling finger jabbed at the talk button on my walkie-talkie. A malicious beep erupted from the heart of the pitch-black women's room, a digital echo that fractured the tense silence. For a fleeting moment, Jackson and I shared a look, a silent agreement that spoke volumes. Within the span of a heartbeat, we found ourselves sprinting back towards the main road, Route 209, leaving behind the haunted shadows of the forsaken resort. Upon reaching the perceived safety of the main road, we halted, gasping for breath, our chests heaving and hearts hammering in our ears. It was then, under the dim glow of a distant streetlight, that Jackson unfolded a chilling tale. In one of the decrepit bungalows he had dared to explore, he had attempted to communicate with me through his walkie-talkie, only to be met with an unnerving silence. As he turned towards the living area, his flashlight beam revealed a horrifying sight. An older woman, her eyes gleaming with an eerie madness, was charging towards him. In his terror, he dropped his walkie-talkie and flashlight and fled from the bungalow. Blinded by darkness and fear, he had sought refuge in the shadows, his breath hitched in his throat lest he alert his pursuer. Seeing the light from my flashlight across the desolate field by the restrooms, he had seized the opportunity to rejoin me, leaving behind the lurking danger within the bungalow. I theorized that the woman might have been a deranged addict, seeking shelter within the ruins of the abandoned resort. Perhaps the faulty plumbing in the bungalow forced her to utilize the bathroom building, though that did nothing to clarify the disturbing trail of crimson stains. But the unnerving part of this nightmarish ordeal was the inexplicable events, the strange communication through the walkie-talkie, the woman's unexpected and aggressive behavior, the chilling blood-like tracks. None of it added up. The questions they raised were scarier than any ghost story, the possibilities darker than the haunted shadows of the forsaken resort. To this day, the unexplainable terrors we face remain as chilling reminders of our ill-fated adventure into the abyss of the unknown.